I'm thrilled to share my interview with romance author Kerrelyn Sparks.
I mean, the first question has to be, what got you interested in romance? Why become a romance writer?
Oh, because I always read romance. You know, you're guaranteed a happy ending, so what's better than that? You know, you don't want to invest your time in something that's going to be a bummer at the end. Yeah, I love the happy endings. I love seeing a couple fall in love. I love that whole process. And I should have started writing earlier, as much as I loved reading. You know, I read all my life. I just didn't think I could pull it off.
Aww.
So I waited till I was about 43 before I even started trying. And because I finally realized that if I don't at least try, I'm going to regret it someday.
I would regret you not writing these books. I'm like, Rupert is one of my book boyfriends. Like, he had to be written. Was there a moment where you're just going, I should...
Well, actually, I grew up mostly reading historicals, but way back then, that was mostly what was there, you know, and so there weren't a whole lot of paranormals out there. And so my debut book was actually an historical, set in the American Revolution.
I remember this, yes!
Yeah, it was a James Bond of the American Revolution. He had spy gadgets that were suitable to the time period, and even had a submarine and all this stuff. It was fun. It was lots of fun. But that book was published by Forge. They had just opened a romance program and hired a new editor out of college. She bought me and another romantic suspense author, and then quit her job.
Oh.
And then Forge decided just to close the romance program. And so they didn't want any more books from me, and I thought at that time, because I had signed the contract, so they did have to publish the book. And it took 2 years to do it.
Oh.
And I mean, I really didn't even have an editor anymore. I was what you call orphaned in the business, right off the bat. And so by the time the book actually hit the shelves in the stores, I thought my career was already over.
Oh, wow.
And my agent dropped me, and I was shopping around for a new agent, and I was piling up rejections and thinking, what on earth will I do? And I finally found an agent, Michelle Krakowski. Because I had written a sequel to that first American Revolution historical, and she loved it, and she said, I'm going to try to sell it. It'll be a hard sell, because most historicals are set in the British Isles and Regency period, or Victorian.
Everyone loves England.
Yeah, and I just didn't have any dukes in me. I like, you know, the self-made man kind of a thing. And
me too. This is why I read you.
And so she was trying for several years to sell that book, no luck. And that's when I realized, you know, and paranormal was finally starting to take off. And I thought, well, that seems like fun. And then when I thought about it, I realized my favorite historicals, I always thought I was a historical romance reader, but my favorite historicals were books like Jude Devereux's Knight in Shining Armor that were actually paranormal.
Yeah.
And that's when I thought, oh, duh, I actually love paranormal. And why don't I just give it a try? And but even then, going from a historical setting to contemporary, I was kind of nervous, didn't know if I could pull it off. And I kept procrastinating. I had the idea for How to Marry a Millionaire Vampire, that he would lose a fang.
I'm obsessed with that idea. I was like, I've never seen that anywhere else. And then the dentist element, I mean, oh my goodness. This is the most unique paranormal romance I have ever read. But it makes me so happy. How did you come up with him losing a fang?
Well, I wanted to do this. I had watched the movie with, gosh, I can't think of his name now, but Frank Latella was a vampire. He was so sexy. Oh my God. Most of my favorite vampire movies, though, were the comedies, because I really thought they were kind of funny, because what is undead, really? It doesn't really make much sense. And so I thought, you know, what can I do to this really sexy, suave, debonair, cultured vampire that's 500 years old? What is the most embarrassing thing I can do to him? And I thought, well, make him lose his fangs. And then I thought, no, you only lose one fang. And then he's in danger of being a lopsided eater for all eternity. And his friends, vampire friends, will make fun of him. And so that's where that idea came from.
That is one of my favorite. That is the best premise of any paranormal book in the world. I was talking about this the other day because I was saying, we were talking about paranormals and was going, well, have you read this one? That was how I opened. Like, he loses a fang. The girl was like, immediately asked if she'd read this. I mean, because it's so comical. How do you? Because you have such fun ideas with them. I mean, we have the revenge plot. I mean, we have all sorts of different things going on here. Like, how do you keep it fresh? Because you have these, I mean, the way you have these premises, I mean, they're just so different from anything else out in the market. So, like, how do you come up with them original? Like, how do you keep it fresh every time?
Well, really, the New Embrace series, because the vampire books, the Shifters, were part of the Love at Stake series. That's 16 books in that series and 2 novellas. This Embrace series, this was the first one in the book, and then this is the second.
That is a very attractive book cover, by the way.
Thank you. These were with St. Martin's. These are, the Embrace series was my answer to how I would want fantasy to be.
Yeah.
Because I've always loved fantasy. And so I pitched this series as Game of Thrones meets The Princess Bride. That's where you get your pirate, the infamous pirate, Rupert instead of Roberts, yeah.
That's how you got it? Oh my gosh, I never made that connection. That was how you came up with the name?
Yeah, that's why it's Rupert.
That is amazing.
It's my ode to the princess.
Because I always say "as you wish." That's one of my go-tos, so we can tell why he's a book boyfriend now.
So,
I'm
yeah.
like, now I need to go back and reread this book for like the 3rd time.
And really, after all the vampire books, I realized, I mean, I love the vampire guys, that whole gang, the Love at Stake gang. I love them, but I was beginning to get tired of the fact that the way I had set up the world. Well, I only originally sold 2 books. I didn't know it was going to go on for so long. I didn't even know it would be a series.
Really?
I sold the first 2 books, and then they bought more and more. And it wasn't until the 3rd book I realized I had a series going, and then we named it Love at Stake for the series. But the way I had set it up, and then I got, this is a problem with authors. You set up the world and you're stuck with it. And I had set it up where the vampires all had the same powers. And of course, then I had also set it up where they were dead during the day. And I was really getting tired of always writing in the dark. It was always nighttime. And they had the same powers. And so I thought, I want to write a series where I could actually have people alive during the day.
You're like, there's a sunrise for change. They're witnessing the sunrise.
I don't have to worry about who has a flashlight or how they're going to light a torch or whatever. There was always that problem with the other ones because they were always in the dark. I love
how it's like the most random writing difficulty that one can have.
Everyone always had to have a handy flashlight or something. It just got tiresome. But I got to write during the day, and I also wanted to make another gang of supernatural guys and girls, but all with a different power.
So do you have a writer's Bible? I mean, how do you keep everything straight in your head?
Oh, with the Love at Stake, because it went on for 16 books, it got really complicated. On my website, there's a character list, and that's really what was keeping me
I may run out and printed it out.
Really didn't matter a whole lot when I first started, when they were all, whether a guy's 500 years old or 504 really doesn't make a lot of difference. At that point, 4 more years is no big deal. But
he stopped celebrating his birthday a while ago.
Yeah, but what happened when they started, I fixed it where they could have children. Then I had to be really, really careful with the timeline because 4 years makes a huge difference. 4-year-old and an 8-year-old, there's a huge difference. So I had to really start keeping track of who they were and when they were born and all that kind of stuff. I do intend to go back to the Love at Stake gang.
Oh, you are?
But jump ahead about 20 years so the kids will be grown.
Oh, will they get their own series?
Well, yeah, pretty much.
I get to see them growing up?
Yeah.
Oh, that is so exciting. I'm like, she needs to go immediately start writing these books.
Well, what happened was after St. Martin's did the first 3 books, they asked me to go back to vampires. And I do intend to eventually, but there were 2 more books, 2 more sisters to write. And I didn't want to leave my readers in the lurch, with an unfinished series. So I said, no thanks. And At the time, I thought I was. But Kensington stepped in, and because it's unusual for a publisher to take a series, midstream.
Yeah.
So, but they said no, we'll do the last two.
That's amazing.
So that's why the last two books, it was the Embrace series, because it's a different publisher, they can't really use the same title.
Right, yeah.
So they're calling it Embrace by Magic, books 1 and 2, because it is 1 and 2 for them, but it's actually 4 and 5 in the entire series. And they're actually going to do it in trade paperback, so it'll be
Oh wow!
bigger.
Go Kensington. I would have been really sad. I would have been like, yes, please self-publish those books. I need to know. I'll be, staring at me like, I need to know.
Yeah, I couldn't believe I had too many readers going, where's book 4? But that's why there's a long gap between 3 and 4.
Okay.
Because when you change publishers, they put you at the end of their queue.
I mean, what is your typical writing day look like? Because again, you are so prolific. I mean, are you a morning person, a night person? Do you work in a home office or a cafe? Like, how do you get to write these?
I usually just write at home. I rarely use my office. I have an office. My husband uses it more for taxes and stuff like that. I hardly ever go in there to work, because then it feels like work.
Yeah.
And I don't want it to feel like work.
Oh.
So I sit in the den in a recliner, I just get all comfy and go at it. And there's no TV in that room. My husband has to go upstairs to the media room to watch TV and shut the door, because he's learned that I can't write dialogue when I'm hearing dialogue.
In what way does it become difficult? Like dialogue tags?
I just start listening to the dialogue, and then it just distracts me too much.
So next question has to be, you can't listen to music then? Cause
I can, but usually instrumental music.
Okay.
Or I have this secret. I'm addicted to Korean television.
Really?
And so many of the shows have really wonderful soundtracks, and I can listen to their soundtracks because if it's in Korean,
you don't know what they're saying.
it doesn't distract me, because it's just.
Rachel Van Dyken, she told me, she's like, you gotta start watching Korean soap operas. She's like, you gotta start. So the fact that you both are now telling me to do this, I'm like, I need to add this to my TV watch list. This is gonna happen.
They're really unusual. They're really good shows. Actually, Netflix, because they're so popular, Netflix has started putting up a lot of them. And then I go to this site called Viki, V-I-K-I.
I mean, so is that your most interesting writing quirk? What is your biggest writing quirk?
That's probably what inspires me the most is Korean television.
Because I'm also fascinated by the fact, I didn't know you had that issue when you were first starting writing. You would never know, because you're so successful at this point. Like, to me, when I look at you, I'm like, you are the dream. Like, this is the writing dream.
No, I really struggle with.
How did you keep motivated?
With self-esteem, actually, that can I pull it off?
Yeah.
And I actually go into a panic every time I have to start a new book, wondering, can I do it? Can I do it? And sometimes I do have to go to the office then, because all the New York Times bestseller books are on the wall. I have to go up there and look and go, yeah, you've done this over 20 times. You really can't do this. But I go into a panic. Just, when you open up a new Word document on your computer and it's this blank page, and you just go, oh my God, what am I going to do? And these books too, these are like 500-page manuscripts, and you're thinking, oh God, how will I make it through another 500 pages?
Like, that's kind of reassuring in a way, that someone as prolific and as established and as successful with these books is still kind of struggling to be like, yes, can I do this? Because you'd think at this point, you'd be like, yes, I'm just going to sit down at my computer and bang out this book.
No, you would think it would get easier, but I think it gets harder, because you always do the best you can do, but then because you've done the best you can do, you're setting the bar high, and so the next book has to be good too, really good too, and you're always feeling a pressure of sort of outdoing yourself and improving and getting better, that just becomes scary.
I I mean, how do you overcome that then? Like, how do you get to that blank page where you say, I'm not panicking, I'm gonna write my, Angela's next boyfriend over here with like,
once I get over it, and sometimes I just have to pace around in circles for a while and pump myself up, like, yes, I can do it. And once I get into it, though, I forget about that because I'm immersed in the stories and the characters and kind of, zone out. And a couple hours go by without realizing it because you're just into the story at that point.
I mean, so you're pacing around, do you listen to music? Are you giving yourself like affirmations? Or you're a little cheerleader? I mean, you're able to overcome it, so you're doing something right.
Well,
obviously.
yeah, exercise is good. I'm pacing around, and if I have trouble getting started, usually once I'm into the book, like I will read to get myself into it. I'll read the last couple of chapters I've done,
Mm-hmm.
and then by the time I get to the blank page, I'm ready to go, and I just keep going. But that's my writing style, is I sort of loop that way. Like the first 100 pages, I will start back at page 1 over and over, and if chapter 1 is done, I read chapter 1 and then start chapter 2. When I'm done with that, I still go back to chapter 1 and go to chapter 2, chapter 3.
So by the time you're done, it's not really a first draft. You've already read through things.
Yeah, I've looked over so many times that it's been, because each time I make little changes, and so by the time I reach the end, the last page, the book is ready to go.
Wow.
Because it's been looked at so many times.
Because this isn't a NaNoWriMo, get your words on the page, just get the story out. This is, you're editing as you go and revising and expanding. But you're also, so I'm trying to think how to phrase this. So you are going from start to finish then? You are going chapter 1 to the end?
Well, sometimes though, because I really can't write a scene until I've seen it, like a movie in my head, and I'm just not a logical enough person. I mean, I tell myself, you need to see the next scene, you need to see the next scene, and then what pops in my head is not the next scene, it's something 100 pages later, and used to, 10, 15 years ago, I go, oh, okay, I'll remember that. Now that I'm older, I don't trust myself to remember it, especially if it's what's come to mind is a whole bunch of funny dialogue. I'm not sure I'm going to remember all of that. So I do write that down. So a lot of times I have little bits and pieces, and when I come to that point, then I'm able to put it in. But I'm not as linear as I used to be. Mainly because I have to envision, I have to see it in my mind before I can write it, and I just don't always see things in chronological order. I wish I was that sensible, but I'm not.
So are you plotting them out in advance?
No, I think I'm what you call a subconscious writer.
Interesting.
I never write a plot out. I never really plan the book, but somehow in my mind it is plotting, and I just don't realize it. So, because whenever I see things that are 100 pages later, they always fit in perfectly. They're always there. It's my mind somehow is working that way.
It naturally creates a sequential build-up to the climactic falling action. That's fascinating. So you've internalized the act structure, and
I'm not aware of it happening, but the books just magically do happen that way, where it all works out. But it's not planned.
Well, I mean, that's so encouraging to hear, though, because I've taken so many writing classes, and they get very intricate of, you have to have your act 1, and at this point, and they get very, very particular with the numbers and the craft. I mean, you are New York Times bestselling, giving me my book boyfriends, like a successful writer, and you're not concerned like, it has to end exactly at this page. I mean, that's so encouraging, though, because there's a freedom to that, and it kind of alleviates a lot of pressure.
No, I just let it happen, and magically it does happen. Over and over.
I was like, it's quite frequently.
Yeah, it's amazing. I mean, to me, that's the fun part of writing, is that it just sort of magically happens.
Your books are also a little bit longer than the average romance novel.
Well, the fantasy books have gotten longer.
So what is
mainly because I think the extra world building takes room.
I was going to say, so you must have a higher word count in regards to, are you going for, because usually it's around 60,000, you must be going for probably 80,000, or?
Oh gosh, no, these Love at Stake books, they usually averaged around a bit over 100,000. for some reason, and it always came out pretty much the same, which was really weird because it's not planned, but it just seemed to take about 430 pages, manuscript pages, to tell the story, and it would always come out right about the same. And
you're just now, you have this organization within you that just comes out.
then with the fantasy books, the Embrace series, the manuscripts were coming out well over 500. This one was like 580.
Wow.
Yeah, I mean, you can see it's a long book.
Yeah, I mean, because usually the typical romance is 60,000 words, and yours have always been longer than the typical.
Yeah, this
format.
was over, these have been running over 500 pages,
Wow.
the fantasy books.
I mean, that's a lot of typing.
Well, yeah.
So do you?
I get scared when I start because the thought of, let's whip out 500 pages.
So you go by, do you have a goal page count for your writing day going, I'm going to write 10 pages today?
No, I wish I was that organized. I'm not. I write what I write what I have seen,
Mm-hmm.
and I stop when I'm done. I don't really count the pages. Some days I might only write 4 pages, and then sometimes I'll often write 20.
Wow.
There's never.
That's a big difference in pages and word count.
Well, it really depends on where I am in the book. Like How to Love Your Elf. At the beginning of the book,
You can't say that title without me smiling. You just say that and I'm just immediately happy.
200 pages, I'm only doing maybe 5 pages a day. It's real slow.
Yeah.
I think because this subconscious part of me is just slowly figuring things out.
Yeah.
But then the last 100 pages, I wrote the last like 150 pages I wrote in like 12 days. Because
Wow.
once it's set up,
Yeah.
and all you have to do is resolve everything,
Mhm.
that goes really quickly. And at the end, it's mostly action and sex and action.
Okay, I'm immediately making a mental note when I'm editing to pull this quote and make like little canvas pictures of this because it seems to be on Twitter and Instagram all over. Mainly sex and action at the end. That is amazing.
Well, yes, when you think about it, all the time you're setting up your main conflict of your story,
yeah.
your good guys and bad guys, and it usually ends with violence at the end. I mean, there's no way to get rid of the bad guys without killing them, basically, in my book. So at the end of the book, there's going to be battles of some kind. And actually, action writes very quickly. Because you don't have to think about what are they thinking or how do they feel. They're just trying to stay alive at that point, and there's not a whole lot of thinking.
He's not worried about the oceans of her eyes at that moment in time.
No. It would be weird if he's, stopped in the middle of a battle to think about how beautiful she was. He would get himself killed. So the action writes very quickly. And then you also have your romantic conflict that you've been working on all through the book. And when that, of course, climaxes.
I love the little like wink, nudge, nudge.
That's obvious what's going to happen there when the romantic conflict is resolved. Yes, they have to celebrate. And so, yeah, the last 100 pages is mostly is sex and action, and it writes very quickly. And you just resolve everything that was wrong, whatever. You resolve it. I sometimes in writing workshops, I liken it to saying you've knitted a sweater. Mm-hmm. And while you're knitting it, you have to be real careful that it's constructed right and that your thread is all, you're not catching your thread and all that. But then if you decide if you're going to undo it, you should be, a sweater that took 3 months to write, you should be able to unravel in just minutes.
Yeah.
And that's what you're doing at the end, you're unraveling.
Oh, I love that. Yeah, I mean, as someone who's knitted, when you pull and you make a mistake, it's very easy to do that, whereas it took me like 2 hours to do something.
Yeah, it unravels really quickly. So that's sort of what, if
this is why you're a writer, because that is a very good comparison to be making.
Yeah, if you have set it up, if you've knitted it well, if you set up the story really well, the last 100 pages or so will unravel very quickly.
I mean, because one of the things that I'm always so fascinated with your books, I'm going to ask you about the humorous elements in a second, but you have the ability to kind of do the double where you have the emotional conflict with the relationship, but there is another external conflict going on as well. So I mean, you're able to have both, which is difficult to do in romance, but you're able to accomplish it.
Romance is not easy to write. A lot of people think romance, you just have them fall in love and go to bed and that's it. But romance is very difficult to write. Because for one thing, you have two protagonists. You have your male and your female, and I like to always do both points of view because I always want to know what the guy's thinking. And
don't we all? Don't we all?
And then, so you have two protagonists, and then I usually have a bad guy or two, and then you have your main conflict, you have your romantic conflict. They each have your two main characters each have their internal conflicts. It's very complicated. Romance is not easy to write.
How do you balance that all out? Because it comes to you naturally. So is there any, I gotta go add this plot twist, or
it just feels right. I mean, I grew up reading so many books. When you're reading a book, you know if it's good or not. You know, like this book is fantastic or this book is not so good. I mean, you know while you're reading it. And so that instinct that you have still comes into play when you're writing. You know when it's working or when it's not. Sometimes when I'm writing, I just stop. And I really don't know why. I just stopped because I still have ideas, but I stopped for the day. And then when I think about it, I realize it's because I've made a mistake. Once again, it's that self-conscious thing. But self-consciously is realizing this is a mistake. You're making a character do something he doesn't want to do, and it just stops me. And then I'll go back and I realize, okay, I'm forcing myself on the character, and I need to let them run the show.
I love how you're like, I'm the best. Like the characters, I'm penning them. They're your own creations.
They're character-driven books, so you let the characters do what they want to do. And they have surprised me many a times. When all of a sudden I'm writing and they're kissing, I'm like, well, I didn't think that was going to happen. They do surprise me.
What's the biggest surprise? You're going, hey, I didn't intend for you to do that.
Oh, usually it's the first kiss.
No, interesting.
Usually I think it's not going to happen yet, but the guys usually surprise me because they're like, I'm not waiting. What do you mean not for another 2 chapters? I want to kiss her now. So I was like, oh, okay.
Well, I mean, again, because they're mostly alpha-esque, so the alpha's not going to be waiting too long. He's not going to be playing it coy. I love your books because they have so many different things going on, but I'm fascinated by the fact that you have comedic lines, and if I'm reading your book and my dog's asleep and I start laughing, he will jolt awake because I'm laughing so loudly. I mean, you're able to take me off guard and going, did I just read this? So I was curious how you would come up with those lines, because I was like, do you write them in advance and then say, I'm going to go put this in here, or do they just come to you in that scene?
My favorite thing to actually write in romances is the repartee. It's the funny dialogue.
I can tell.
That is when I'm just smiling while I'm writing, and also sometimes even laughing. And that is my favorite part to write. Not the sex scenes or the action or killing somebody. That's not my favorite part. It's just when they have the witty repartee and it's shooting back and forth, and it's really, I think, underneath it all, there's so much sexual tension going on, and I love that because it's kind of a power play. It's like who can win this conversation, and be the outsnark the other, and that's the funnest part of writing romance is when they're really challenging each other, seeing how far each other can go, and it's. That's when you can really tell that this couple has chemistry and that they're going to survive all the odds because the way they talk to each other, they're so in tune with each other and they get each other so well. And so that's my favorite part to write. A lot of times those dialogues they just come to me. A lot of times I'll sleep late. I'm not actually sleeping. I mean, I'm half awake and I'll just stay in bed and let my mind just wander, and then the dialogue starts.
Oh, wow.
And so I'll have all the dialogue in my mind, and then I have to jump up and hurry up and write it down. But my husband's so used to that of me staying in bed. Sometimes he'll walk in and he goes, "Oh, you're still in bed?" And he sees this dazed look on my face. He goes, "Oh, you're working." And so he leaves me.
I'm working on the next New York Times bestseller, thank you very much.
Yeah, he just come in and look at it and go, "Oh, you're working, sorry," and goes off because he doesn't want to, disturb
I love
me.
how he knows your process.
Yeah, he knows I'm working, even though I'm just laying in bed.
But that counts as work.
He knows I need to imagine something before I can write it. So, yeah, he doesn't want to.
Because I think that's so interesting, though, because you visualize before you pen the words.
I have to hear the dialogue.
Well, you do the left and right brain combine that in a way.
Well, maybe so. I am left-handed, but I do things with a right hand. So, yeah, I do, I think, go back and forth.
I mean, I love the dialogue, and I think you're speaking to my romance reading heart over here when you're saying that, because, again, you're hitting at what you're going to go back to before about the romance, where that's the emotion, that's where the character-driven elements come into play. I mean, yes, you can have the action or the romance scenes, but the dialogue, because that's what readers
That's the
love.
sexual tension. That's when you could tell this guy wants to jump her so bad. But he can't, because...
Or he'll take her captive and be like, wow, she was not the captive I knew. This is not the captive I was expecting.
That book's so long because it's almost like two books. There's the part at sea and then there's the part at land. And when they go to land, it's like I had to start completely over, with the world building. And that one has like a gladiator type thing in it, where they do the...
Yeah. I love this. I mean, this is what I mean. You have so many different elements in the book, but they're woven together in this seamless fashion. Because a lot of times you'll have these they'll feel kind of disconnected, but it just flows naturally. There's this organic nature to them. So, I mean, I think that is so commendable. I'm like, thank you for doing that. But I mean, I wanted to ask if you could go back in time and tell your younger writing self something, what would it be? If you had a piece of advice to give yourself that you wish you knew beforehand.
There's plenty of times I wish I had started earlier because when I sold my first book, I was 45. And I think, gosh, I wish I had started. I wish I had had the confidence to start earlier. But then I tell myself, I was a different person back then, like in my 20s. And so the books would have been different.
Yeah.
So I have to tell myself the timing was right.
Yeah.
Because this is who I am now, and this is how the books are. But what I can really congratulate myself over, what I really feel great about, is that even though I was lacking in self-confidence, my daughter, she finished her first book at the age of 16.
Wow.
And then while she was in college, wrote a second one. So good that my agent picked her up immediately. And
is she published?
No. And actually, she's in nursing school now, so she doesn't really have time, but she is talented. But just knowing that my daughter had the confidence that what I grew up lacking, that I managed to raise my daughter in a way that she had that confidence. So that to me is like the biggest accomplishment of my life, thinking that you did well as a parent.
Oh. This is why we love you. This is why people need to keep buying your books and supporting you.
Well, that's why the children in my books are realistic because I've had two boys and a girl. So yeah, I know.
There was one time you had a kid say something like, where did that come from? Like I could picture it in my head. Like the kid really would say something like that offbeat, wouldn't they?
Yes, I taught school for a while, so I was a school teacher. So I know how to write the children.
So one of my questions was, this is going to be a very tricky question. Of all your books, do you have a favorite character? Because you're talking about the kids, so I'm like, is one of the children your favorite? Or do you have a favorite hero or heroine?
Oh gosh.
I mean, I'm sure there must be a
I always love them all. Because, especially the heroes, who doesn't love the heroes? But when I'm writing it, I feel myself in the heroine's mind so much. You're in their heads because you're writing their thoughts and in their shoes. And so while they're falling in love with the hero, so am I.
Oh.
You know, I mean, I want them to be that lovable that whoever reads it also falls in love with the hero along with the heroine. So I always fall in love with the hero. And usually my favorite hero is the last one I wrote because I'm still in love with him. I'm very fickle. You know, I think, oh, I couldn't love anyone more than Rupert. And then I write Silas the Dragon Shifter and I go, oh no, I love Silas now. And
I was
now,
like the Dragon Shifter is also
now I'm in
very
love with
good.
an elf, yeah.
So you just love all the guys.
I love
the
them
guys.
all, and the heroines, because I always try to make the heroine strong and someone that, you know, you would like to call your best friend or something, someone you could admire. And the heroes, because I do have, I have a lot of young readers. I've heard from readers as young as 12.
Wow.
Yeah, and
You're like-
which is kind of young.
I was gonna say we have some steamy scenes.
Yeah,
There's
really.
some steaminess.
Well, one of this one, Vamps in the City. Here it is, Vamps in the City.
I know. I couldn't bring
That
all the
one,
books.
the hero's name was Austin Erickson. And then I hear from this 12-year-old boy, his name is Austin Erickson. And because his name is the same, I don't know how he found the book, but his mom bought it for him. And I'm thinking, oh my God, I'm teaching sex education for America's youth. Okay.
That's amazing.
But at least, you know, these people really are in love. But when I realize that I have young readers, I always keep that in mind.
When you
So-
said young, I was thinking like, you know, upper teens, like 17, 18.
Well-
and then you get middle schoolers over there. I'm going, oh, this is intriguing.
Well, a lot of them start about 14 or so.
Yeah.
They start fairly young. So I've always had that in my mind that, I've always, from the beginning, I always wanted to write a hero that if my daughter brought him home, I'd go, yeah, this is a good guy. You know, that if he's good enough for my daughter, he's good enough for, you know, all these heroines. And
That is such a great standard to have.
yeah, and I also then, because I have young readers, but really for any reader, I've always wanted to show a romantic relationship that is truly healthy
Yeah.
and respectful.
That is why I love your books. I mean, again, he takes her captive, but there's never any creepy captive moments that you get in some dark romances where you're going, oh, we have Stockholm Syndrome. I mean, I've never encountered that with you.
Yeah, I don't like books that romances. I mean, I do read them sometimes because they're sexy, but at the same time, if there's a huge imbalance of power, that disturbs me. Because yeah, like you said, it feels kind of like a Stockholm Syndrome thing where, you know, is she really in love or is it because she has no choice?
I mean, like, he takes her captive, but like, it's not one of those unhealthy moments. There's a redeemable, the interactions, it's not the same dynamic that you might be like, oh, what just happened there?
Yeah.
So that is something you're conscious of then.
Oh yeah, yeah. I want the relationships to be healthy and happy, and I want to have that feeling that they're perfect for each other and that they will stay together forever. That you have a truly happy ever after ending.
I love it so much. I'm like, yes to everything you just said. So I wanted to ask, because you've written so many different genres and you do have shifters, if you had to pick a writing mascot, avatar, or spirit animal, what would it be?
Oh, probably the werepanther, Carlos. Yeah.
That is an amazing answer. I was thinking you were going to say dragon. I was waiting to see if you were going to say dragon or something like vampire-esque, like a bat. I was going, where is she going to go with the paranormal?
Well, it was, you know, when I started writing the vampires, and of course they were dead during the day, and I thought, well, you know, they have to have someone they can trust to guard them, and that's when the shifters came in. And first, of course, it was Phil, the werewolf, and then this is a real clue that I write subconsciously, because from book 1, How to Marry a Millionaire Vampire, Howard Barr was in there, and I did not realize till about 6 or 7 books later he was a bear, but I had named him Barr, and from Alaska. I mean, it was there. It was like subconscious. But all of a sudden, I'm like, oh my God, he's a bear.
I thought that was just perfect, though. I thought you set that up.
There's so much set up in that book, and that Phil is a werewolf. There was a line in there like, oh, they're not.
I thought you were
these
foreshadowing.
No, it was my subconscious foreshadowing. I didn't realize Phil was a werewolf till like book 3.
Oh my gosh.
And Howard that he was a bear till like book 7 or so. It was a long time.
That is amazing. Your characters are surprising you.
Oh, it was book 5. Book 5, yeah. When Carlos was introduced and he was a werepanther, and when he showed up at Romatech, and all of a sudden he and Howard were eyeing each other, and I thought, oh my God, Howard's a bear. That's why they're like they can sense it, you know. But yeah, it wasn't until then that I realized. And I had set it up though, because he was from Alaska. He had played for the Chicago Bears. I mean, it's like, why didn't I realize he was a bear?
I thought you'd been foreshadowing the whole
No,
time.
I know. It makes it sound like I'm much smarter than I really am.
I honestly thought you were foreshadowing, like doing this setup, like, oh, she's giving me a little hint over here. Because then I was like, oh, this makes sense now.
It makes sense to me too.
That is amazing. I feel like I just got the inside scoop. I was like, this is incredible.
Yeah, I don't always know this stuff. It just happens. It's the magic of writing, which is, you know,
Yeah.
I really wouldn't want to know everything ahead of time. I mean, I know some authors want everything planned, but then to me that would take all the fun out of the process. It would be like I was writing a book report by that point. So I want the surprises, and that's what keeps it fun. But it wasn't until I started writing all the shifters.
Yeah.
Because the vampire world was really just a parody of our world.
Yeah.
You know, they had their own food, the vampire fusion cuisine. They had their own TV station. It was a parody of the human world. I could make fun of the human world with the vampire. There wasn't a whole lot of world building. It was taking our world and making fun of it. Then when I started writing the shifters, I had to figure out, well, where did they come from? How did this happen? And what is their culture going to be like? And of course I was basing it really on the real animals, like the wolves always are in packs, and then the bears are kind of loners. And that's why when it came to Howard's book, the wolves were actually winning over the bears in Alaska because they outnumber them. They are always in a pack picking on a lone bear. But I had to come up with world building for each shifter for their culture, like Carlos, the werepanther from Brazil, I had to come up with what was that culture like. And so, you know, how did they come to be? And once I got into the world building, I realized how much I really love it. And of course, then with Lord of the Rings and all this, and you're seeing all this wonderful world building, that's why I really wanted to do the Embraced series, because I thought I want to build an entire world. And so that was the ultimate in world building.
I'm so glad you decided to do that.
That's why they're so thick. Yeah, I had to build an entire world.
Yeah, but I mean, you love your writing process, and you like knowing what's not happening. So it's like, yes, it might be longer, but you were happy writing it the whole time, right?
Oh yeah.
So it's not like it's a chore where some people are going, I gotta write this, I gotta do that. It sounds like you enjoy your process, though.
Oh yeah, it's always like, what's gonna happen next?
Yeah, it's like you're watching your own TV show in a way.
It's a TV show, because I have to see it in my head. So yeah, I'm seeing each episode, you know, in my head, and yeah, it's like watching a TV show, and it's fun. That's why I keep doing it.